Hey everyone, it's Catherine and Mr. Stellar J, who has to chime in. I hope you're having a beautiful day. I hope Mr. Stellar J finds another place to go and squawk. Although he might not. He's very vocal. How do you stay in your light when it feels like the dark is closing in, when the world seems very dark, when you're surrounded by people who are negative, when you're surrounded by or in the middle of a negative situation, when it feels like the greater forces at work or the powers that be just seem like a force of impending doom and darkness? What do you do with all that? How do you stay in your light? How do you stay free and unsullied from all the negativity and the turmoil and the chaos, and keep yourself from spiraling downward in the same kind of whirlpool of negativity and dark energy? So there's a couple things I want to talk about, and I don't want to talk very long. I'm trying to keep my lives under 15 minutes. Brevity is not my thing, but it's a work in progress. It's very easy for us in the world that we live in right now, especially if you watch the news at all, if you watch any TV, if you pay attention to social media and maybe posts from friends who share their new outrage or new disgust with what's going on. And I'm not trying to diminish anyone's feelings about that. We can all have very, very strong feelings about the injustices and the atrocities and the horrible displays of human behavior that we can have in this world. It is difficult not to be affected by that. We're human, okay? We are emotional beings. We are empathic, sensitive beings, some of us more than others, and we can carry or take on the vicarious trauma of things going awry in the world, right? Where people are being underserved, where there is very clearly violence towards people who are more helpless or in helpless situations. And we feel that pain even more as empathic or sensitive souls when we see animals, children, humans being mistreated in some way, shape, or form. And we can carry that. Those of us who are healers and those of us who try to stay in our light and we try to share light, it can be very difficult for us to maintain a frequency where we can not only hold light for ourselves and support ourselves, but have a frequency that is big enough and strong enough and positive enough that we can hold others in that light as well. It can be very difficult. And in the times that we find ourselves in, where it seems like the powers of light and dark are very, very diametrically opposed, where they are very polarizing, we take that in and we feel that internal turmoil. We feel that internal chaos very, very deeply. And those of us who are trying very hard to maintain this light on a daily basis feel like we're being tried constantly, like we're being tested by the universe constantly. Am I really someone that can be doing this? Am I really a healer that can move forward in light in the face of seemingly escalating energies of negativity and darkness? How can I be the one to wear this mantle of way shower, thought leader, light bearer, if I can barely stand this energy myself? Okay. Hi, Christine. So if you are someone that feels like, more and more things to make me feel outraged, more and more things to make me feel, my God, humanity is atrocious. How do we ever have any hope of arising out of this blackness, this darkness, and becoming the humans that we are truly meant to be? How do we settle with or find some sort of resolution within to make peace with what's happening? Well, getting swept up in the outrage, okay? And even though those of us who feel like, in the name of justice, I'm going to raise my fist against this energy and declare shenanigans on what's happening in a very strong and profound way, we kind of get into this ego way of anchoring light. And it's not necessarily the best way to do it. because we're engaging in the fight. We think that, by having a righteous sense of indignation and outrage against something, that we are fighting the good fight. But in fact, it's not necessarily about fighting or waging war or being in battle at all, because we are fighting the same level of unconsciousness with just more unconsciousness, with more ways of being unaware and unwoke. So it's all the more reason for us to, when we feel the outrage, when we feel the anger, when we feel and see the injustices taking place, animals, children, humans, women, whoever being hurt, it's more of an invitation for us to be more in our light. And we all have our own individual way of expressing that. Now, I happen to be, I have a very dark sense of humor. I happen to be very sarcastic. I love to be the one that jokingly points out things that to me are glaringly obvious, but not necessarily to everyone else, and doing it in a way where I can laugh at myself, I can laugh at the situation, I can help the other person I'm with to maybe laugh at what they're doing. That's how I bring light into a situation. I'm not flowers and unicorns and sunshine and rainbows. That's just not me. But I have a way of bringing lightness to something that feels unbearable at the time, to bring in contrast and to say, oh, well, it could also be this way. And that's what I share. That's how I like to bring my light to the situation and always be in my light. And when you're doing it from a place of ego, it can be exhausting. So when we are staying in our light, and we are so strong in our light that it's stronger than those around us who are being dark, then it's stronger than the situations that we may be involved in that are holding so much of, such a potent and packed vessel of negativity. We are called to be in our light that much more. And however you express that, however that is your unique avenue of bringing that light forth and sharing it with the world and having it ripple outward, you do that. You do that. And you do that with such a level of confidence that you have this knowing, not from an ego knowing, not from an ego place of, I know that I'm right or righteous because I'm bringing light. No, that's the wrong energy. And if you keep anchoring into that energy, you are going to find yourself even more frustrated, even more outraged, and even more exhausted and depleted, because you're trying to hold a place of all this light in a vessel that literally is not capable of holding it. The ego is not capable of holding that much light that comes from a very, very high frequency energy, a bigger cup, a bigger vessel. Your ego is not that vessel. Okay? The divine aspect of you, the infinite part of you that goes on and on beyond this world, beyond the pain, the turmoil, the chaos of this world, that part of you that is infinite, that part of you that goes on, that is the cup, the holder, the vessel of your light. And you have to keep pulling from that. You have to keep moving yourself into the moment, into the present, and saying, okay, well, where's the distinction? Where am I discerning my ego self from my infinite self? And always redirect back to the infinite self. Because you will have an undepleted, limitless fount of energy from which to pull light from when you keep redirecting back to that energy, back to that higher level perspective. Okay? When you're going into a place where, well, I have to fight against this outrage, I have to fight against this injustice, you're playing the same game as those who are trying to lead with dark. And in our ego sense, we kind of fool ourselves into thinking, well, I'm leading with light by fighting this injustice. If you're in an energy of fighting or being at war or being at battle, you are playing the same game as those who would be leading with darkness as opposed to light. And that's a difficult pill for us to swallow, especially those of us who are way showers, thought leaders, those of us who are bearing the light to humanity to help humanity continue on its awakening process. We feel like we have to speak out, or we want to pinpoint on this one snapshot of the chaos that's happening, and it could be a news story, it could be some injustice that's happening to a woman, to a child, to an animal. And by singling that out, sorry, there's so many jets flying by this summer. By singling that out, what you're doing is you're taking a snapshot of that chaos, and you are taking your light and you are focusing on that. You are putting your attention on that. And guess what happens when you place your focus and your attention on something? You expand its energy. You give it more power by taking your energy, your light, and focusing on this thing that is just a snapshot. And yes, there's a horrible thing happening. Yes, there's an atrocity. But what good are you doing by playing the same game as those who are focusing on bringing the dark forward and having you pretend right along with them that the dark is as powerful as the light? Because it's a game we're kind of collectively pretending to play along with, especially if you get caught up and swept up in the outrage. You feed the outrage machine. You feed the offense machine. So many of us are walking around and we are offended. We are wounded all the time, and we're carrying it like a badge of honor. So you're playing right into the hands of those of us, or those who would like to lead the planet forward in darkness. And that darkness is an illusion. We don't want to hear that. And we want to like, la, 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 Catherine, you're full of shit. Darkness is not an illusion. I can see it right in front of me. Well, you can see it right in front of you because that's what you're choosing to focus on. There's also a shit ton of stuff that's happening around you that are full of light. But you're choosing not to focus on that. That is your choice. And that's why I say in every moment there is an opportunity to make a choice, to steer your energy and redirect your energy back to that infinite part of self that helps you to stand more firmly in your light. And when you keep going back to that, you keep redirecting your energy back to that infinite part of self, what you are doing is making that light, infinite part of self stronger and stronger. It's like you're building up the muscle. It's like when you commit to a workout routine and you say, okay, for 2 weeks, I'm going to do a workout every day. Even if it's just 20 minutes each day, I'm going to do that. I'm going to work on my arms. I'm going to work on my legs. I'm going to work on my abs. I'm going to do some cardio. It's the same thing with redirecting your energy back to your infinite part of self, that part of you that will never be depleted by the perceived illusion of darkness in the world. So if you keep redirecting back to this, it's like exercising a muscle. But it's also a process of remembering, because that's who you truly are. We're all swept up collectively in the illusion here of the darkness and the forces. There's some really beautiful birdies playing over there. See, I'm focusing on the light. I'm like, yeah, I'm talking about the darkness, but there's some beautiful birdies playing with each other over here. We get so swept up in the collective illusion of what is dark, what is unjust, what is negative, what is polarizing, what makes us feel powerless. It is a practice that way as well. We are so well practiced at anchoring into that part of self, but it's not real. It really is an illusion. And we are so well practiced at it, we go back to this way of being often and often. Like, how many times in your day do you get pulled into somebody's dark energy? Someone makes a shitty comment, or a snippy little comment to you, and you get swept up in that. That happened to me yesterday when I was at the grocery store. So a woman just got really, really snippy with me for no reason. I was actually being really, really polite. And for a minute, I let my ego self get swept up in, well, like, what the fuck did I do to her? Like, what did I do to this woman? I was actually being very polite. I announced my presence. I said, excuse me. And then she said something really snippy back to me. And I took that in from the ego part of self. I chose to go into that energy where I felt hurt. I felt wounded. I felt like, what did I do? What's wrong with me? Where did I, do something bad? Or where was I at fault? I was going into the attention span of my ego, where I felt justified in feeling hurt and staying in that place. And then thinking of all the clever things that I could have said back to her, and snippy and whatever, because I'm actually really good at that. But I didn't want to do that. Who knows what kind of day she was having? Who knows what kind of darkness was sweeping her up in outrage or chaos? And me just feeding that energy back to her would give her all the validation that she needs, that, hey, darkness is all there is. I don't want to be that person. That's not my role here. That's not my choice in being here. That's not my mission that is going to help carry humanity forward in light, is to get swept up in the outrage, get swept up in the offense, get swept up in all of the things that make us feel so hurt and wounded and walking around like we're just being torn to shreds all the time. We are so much more powerful than that. And even though you may think, well, I want to speak out against the injustice. Well, how about you hold that space and visualize and hold the energy of what it would look like if just the opposite played out. The opposite played out that actually was a benefit to all of humanity as a whole, as opposed to more empowerment, as opposed to feeling like being in that energy when we are in conflict. Because when you are battling injustice, you are in an energy of conflict. That doesn't feel good to hold that, does it? It feels like, but I have to fight. I have to say this in order to battle this. I have to counter this energy with that. You are swept up in the polarity. You are swept up in the duality of this existence. You are swept up in the illusion. The only way to hold the truth and to hold the light is to keep anchoring into, okay, what do I want it to be like? Then I need to act as if right now it is that way. I need to act as if right now with that lady in the supermarket that I encountered yesterday, that her and I are best friends, and we're going to be best friends for life. That I would hold that space in my heart and that light for her, that the rest of her day be better. That the rest of her week, that the rest of her life, why stop with a week? That the rest of her life be better than it was in that moment where we had that exchange, where I felt conflict, where she felt conflict. Because in the larger scope of things, conflict is that thing we're constantly trying to resolve here on this planet. But if you come at it from this idea that there is always conflict, how can there ever really be a resolution? Because the conflict becomes an identity for the whole imprint of humanity as a whole. So if that's an identity, if conflict, very loud motorcycle, is the identity for all humanity, how in your mind, especially in your ego mind, which is where you're trying to dissect this from, how is there ever resolution? And it just becomes this lofty ideal that will never come to pass. So what you have to do is you have to anchor it every single moment. You have to hold that light. You have to hold that. Think of it as holding your light, as holding a realm or a vessel or a potent container of possibility, of it could be this way. And I know it can be this way if I can hold this frequency myself. And the other day I did a live where I talked about when we hold this frequency within us, when we hold this vibration, it ripples out. The electromagnetic energy that we hold as human beings is very powerful, very palpable, and very contagious. So you notice, those of you who are my friends who are empaths and very sensitive to energy, when you walk into a room, how many of you can gauge it like that? I can. And sometimes I will walk out of that room. I'm like, too much for me to take on. I'm going over here. The energy felt way better over here. We get to make that choice. And sometimes for us to stay in our light, we just do not have to engage. We don't. There's nothing that says, like, I have to go into this room and battle all this dark with my light. No, you don't. You can still hold light in your heart for that space and say, hey, I hope the next time I walk into that room, the light is better. I hope the next time I engage with the people who are collectively holding this like hive energy, I'm going to hold the light in my heart that changes the next time I'm exposed to it. Right? So if you are holding that space in your heart, it ripples out. And there's a lot of scientific study being done about the electromagnetic energy, the frequency of the heart space, and the energy that we hold. They can hook us up to all kind of monitors and stuff to our heart and to our brain to figure out what happens when we hold a higher frequency. They've done it with monks who've sat and meditated about compassion. And they hooked up their heart, they hooked up their brain, and figured out that certain parts of the brain would light up when they were meditating on compassion, when they were meditating on forgiveness, when they were meditating on mercy, when they were meditating on understanding. These are all the higher frequency emotions, part of the higher frequency spectrum of experience that every single human has access to if they choose that. So if more people were choosing that every single day, all day, and kept redirecting back to that infinite part of self, where you have access easily, without resistance, to those frequencies, what do you think the planet would be like? Those of us who are waking up would feel a lot more enlightened, happier, more connected to the rest of humanity, more connected to themselves, more connected to that divine higher field of intelligence within, that is offering them a perspective that is far greater than the one that says, I need to fight this injustice, I need to fight this outrage. We got to learn how to stay in our own lane. Always a choice. Yes, Janine, absolutely. It's always a choice. And we are always choosing in every single moment. It depends on how present you are, though. If you're walking around with all of your energy projected into the future, you're not present. If you're walking around with all of your wounding and you're lamenting the past, you're not present. So the only way you make the most informed, discerned choice from a place of that higher self level of judgment is if you're present, if you're aware, if you're in the moment. There's a great live that I watched the other day from a brilliant thought leader who I really enjoy. And if you don't know who he is, Matt Kahn. He has a YouTube channel. I highly recommend subscribing to it. But he talks about the same things that I'm talking about here. So this electromagnetic frequency that we have when we hold a higher frequency in our heart, and we keep redirecting our energy to that all day, making that choice to be present and then making that choice to go back into that energy all day, every day, we create a ripple effect. That energy goes out about a mile in all directions. Think of how many people you are informing with that energy, that higher level perspective, that higher field of intelligence. Lots and lots of people. Your friends and neighbors, people you know, people who are in your neighborhood, your mailman, your UPS delivery guy, the people in the grocery store, right? You got to stay in your own lane a little bit. And we can't get swept up into the outrage. Even if you are surrounded by people who are holding this darkness, this negativity, the only way that you can hope that they will continue their awakening process and become more enlightened is for you to keep staying in your own lane. Keep staying in the higher heart frequency. And we're going to get pulled out of it. That's the nature of our 3D experience down here. It's a very dense reality. We're privy to a lot of different emotions throughout the day, but whether you choose to marinate in those energies that are of a lower frequency, that's entirely your choice. No one is making you do that. Stop with the victim mentality. Stop with the martyrdom. We're over that. That's done. That is not a part of a leadership paradigm. That is dying off. The more you go into that energy, the more you feed that timeline and you keep it alive. Cut it out. We are more elevated than that at this point. We are way beyond victimhood at this point. No one is making you feel that way. And if you are one to constantly point the finger of blame at someone else, you really need to point that finger right back at you. And understand that now more than ever, especially at a time we're about to have Neptune go retrograde, we have got a lot of Pisces energy. There's tons of watery energy, very emotional energy. So you can bet your bottom dollar that the people that you are meeting right now are going to be a perfect mirror for your energy. So if you find you're pointing the blame of at someone else, saying you're doing this, you're doing that, and you're resenting people, you're blaming people, you're gonna want to mirror that back to yourself and find out, okay, well, where am I holding this outrage? Where am I holding this wounding? Because the people that are showing up in your life are proof positive that you are holding this energy somewhere within you yourself. right? I'm friends with my mail lady, right? I say hello to all the people that, because I work from home, so I get to see my mailman, I get to see delivery people, I talk to them when they drop stuff off. Sometimes people ring my doorbell and talk about like their new business in town, and I love engaging with them, and I will always do that because I don't discount anybody's importance to me. You know, maybe that guy who came to my house last week and talked to me about his new butcher shop, maybe the universe will put us together again somewhere down the road, and it will be even more meaningful than our first interaction. I don't know. But I like to think that everyone that I meet, everyone I come into contact with, is for a reason, right? And there is no reason why, in whoever I meet, whatever they do, that I can't hold some light for them. Because that's who I am. That's what I need to do. That's what I'm choosing to do every single day. Because a bigger part of my mission, the bigger why for what I do, is I want to be able to say, when it's my time to leave this world, when it's my time to leave this dimensional reality, that I did as much as I possibly could to make this planet better than I found it. I'll feel regret if I say that to myself and I don't feel like it was true. So every day I'm holding that frequency. Every day I'm holding that light. Do I get taken out of it? Abso-friggin-lutely. All the time. All the time. But I choose to say, okay, this can exhaust me if I get taken out of this all the time, and that will be me talking from my ego aspect of self. Because remember what I said before, the ego can't hold this light. It is impossible. It's like taking the energy of Niagara Falls and trying to put it into a shot glass. It's not going to happen. So if you're redirecting your energy back to your infinite self, you have limitless yield for holding this light. And it will always be replenished when you are holding this frequency. Always. It always regenerates. It's like a constant spiral of energy that keeps regenerating itself. So you have to, from this perspective, hold more light than everyone else around you who is holding all this dark. That's the only way to overcome. And it's not even about overcoming, because that connotes conflict again. But it's the only way to absorb that dark into your light, into the light. Yes? I love the wait time you give to allow to think. Thank you. It's also me giving myself time to think. And I want to touch on this again because it's really, really important. That when we feel that we want to be the righter of wrongs, that we want to do things that can, let's just say, spite the injustices that are happening in the world, we're still coming at it from a place of conflict, from that place of duality where there's light and dark, and I want to be the light, overcoming the dark. Well, think about it as being so much in your light that you absorb the dark. You're not in conflict with it. You're not overcoming it. Okay? You're not battling or waging war against it. You're simply absorbing it. Because then the dark is kind of helpless when there is just so much light. It just absorbs. But if you are coming at this from a place of, I have to do right because I need to correct social injustice, I need to do this, I need to do that, this is wrong, these people are being hurt, and you're in that place of outrage, you're in that place of being offended. Maybe if you're, even from a good place, holding that offense for other people, but holding it as your own, you're not in the light. You are in ego, and that's exhausting. And so to those of you who are my friends who are thought leaders and you are way showers and you find that, hey, I'm trying to do good work here, but I'm tired, you need to check yourself. Are you coming at trying to bring more light in and hold more light from a place of ego? And maybe even, some of us who are doing this, or we're coming at it from a good place, but we're thinking that I'm so righteous. I'm such a good person because I have so much light and I'm better than the people who are in the dark. You're spiritual sidestepping, and you're also being righteous, and coming from a place of ego. Okay? It's exhausting. You can't keep this up. You can't keep hoping to hold light if you're doing it from the vessel of ego. It's not going to work. It's just not going to work. You can't hold the light. And so what it will do is it will deplete your body systems. You deplete your blood. You deplete your organs. You deplete your brain. Brain fog sets in. You feel exhausted. You feel dense and tight in your joints. That's what happens when light workers come at this work and they want to hold the light from a place of ego. That's the physical aspect of it and the side effects. Not good. We put on a lot of weight. Because we have that protective barrier. So we don't exhaust ourselves, so we can protect ourselves. But here's the thing, my light worker friends. If you are doing this work not from the place of ego, if you are doing this work from your infinite self and you keep redirecting the energy back to your infinite self, not only do you have undepleted stores of energy from which to pull from, to pull more light from, to regenerate your light within this light, okay? Because you're plugged into a totally different matrix. When you are plugged into the ego and trying to do this work, you don't feel protected. You don't feel grounded. You don't feel safe. So the body will rush to your aid and find a way to protect you. It'll make you sick, so it takes you out of the rotation. Your joints, your knees, your ankles will hurt, so you can't move forward. Yes, this is literal and metaphorical. You will put on weight so that you'll be safe. That is how everything works together. There's a synergistic effect here. Your body's going to protect you. You can count on that. And you may think, oh, my body is doing something wrong that I'm not in control of. No, you're giving the cues to the body to protect you because you're coming at what you're doing from a place of ego. Stay in your own lane. Stay in your light. I know it's hard, but don't worry about what everyone else is doing. Don't get swept up in the outrage. Don't get caught up in playing that game. And I loved the way Matt Kahn put it in the live that I watched the other day. You are being a salesperson for the dark when you are engaging at the same level that they're at. So don't do it. Go to a very higher frequency. Reach for, when you have these moments, you feel the conflict, you feel the duality, you feel the polarizing energies of light and dark taking you over. Reach for the next best available emotion. Usually it's gratitude. What can you be grateful for in the world that's going right? And automatically you redirect your attention towards the light. You redirect your attention back towards the infinite. And you can be grateful for something that has not even come to pass yet. I'm grateful for all the women in Washington, D.C. who are being heard and being seen in a different light now, who are changing the planet. I'm grateful for that, ahead of the fact. You don't think that makes a difference? It does. Especially if lots of people are vibrating at that same frequency. Just posted on gratitude. Yes, if you guys haven't checked out Janine Shapiro, you need to follow her because her lives are beautiful and potent and always on point. And I really enjoy her Facebook lives. Janine Kathleen. You're going to be exhausted if you keep going into the ego, if you keep going into the outrage, if you keep going into the hurt, if you're a lady, keep going back into your feminine wounding. We women are never going to get ahead. That's your feminine wound and you're wearing it like a badge of honor. Stop it. You're more powerful than that. If you haven't got this about me at this point, I do not bode well with people who play the victim card. That is so over. And you cannot bring the light if you are playing the victim in any way, shape, or form, or the martyr. There's so much work to do. I can't do this. I'm not big enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm tired. I'm too fat. I'm too ugly. How are you going to bring the light and hold the light from that place? And I'm not strong enough to wear the mantle of leader. Stop it. go ahead and read my post about the wounded leader archetype, because that may resonate with you. Thank you, Janine. I appreciate your support too. So I'm going to leave you with that. This is an opportunity and an invitation from me, from the universe, from the cosmos, to you, to realize where you're going into ego and trying to hold your light from a place of ego, or where you are holding your light from a place of the infinite, where you have stores of energy that are beyond your wildest imagination. And when you're pulling from that part of you, you will never be too exhausted to do this work. You won't feel tired and depleted and hopeless and powerless against the rest of humanity at the end of your day. You won't. Trust me. Trust me. But understand that in every moment you are making a choice to either go into that ego vessel and trying to hold light from there, which will never work, or you are going into the place of the infinite, where there is a vessel without boundaries. I mean, you could call it a vessel just because we need to conceptualize with our 3D minds of a container of energy being held. But in fact, it's a semi-permeable membrane of energy that is just infinite and expanding. And it gets bigger all the time, especially the more of us who anchor into that. We feed the collective light. Did I already say what inspired this post today? Yes. My interaction yesterday in the lady in the grocery store, so go back and watch the beginning, Pamela. I'm about to close this out. But every day is an inspiration for me to create a post like this, because there are so many opportunities for us to opt out of our light or to try to anchor it into the ego vessel. We're constantly being supplied with opportunities to do that. Whether we choose that falsehood and we choose that illusion is entirely up to us in our human capacity for free will choice. So I want to thank you guys all for watching. It's always a blessing to bring this to you, and I just want to thank all of you who consistently show up and watch my lives, whether you watch the replays or whatever. Just thank you. I love you all and I support you, and even though I can have kind of schoolmarm energy sometimes about the things that I share and bring a lot of tough love, it's always done out of a place of incredible respect and love for all of you who are holding the light and coming forward to do what you do to bring magic to the world. I just want to thank you, and I'm sending you love and peace. Bye-bye.